Never was happening. Now, he did go on to say that the people around Obama don't have the same protections, so they could have a problem potentially. But I'm still highly doubtful of that as well. And I think if you just look at the timing of it all, the timing tells you that this was more of a political stunt than anything else. But no, deep state criminals need to go to jail. They committed the crimes. They illegally spied on Trump. You think about all the crimes we've just witnessed in, say, the last 5 years that need to be prosecuted. They stole an election. That needs to be prosecuted. They forced people to take a deadly vaccine. That needs to be prosecuted. They shut down the economy. That needs to be prosecuted. They politically persecuted and imprisoned many innocent Americans and people for their speech. That needs to be prosecuted. And yes, going all the way back to 2015, 16, and beyond, they illegally spied on Trump and other people in Trump's circle. They made up fake documents in order to parallel construct their reason to do so. Those are crimes that need to be prosecuted as well. So you can go on and on and on. But yeah, they all need to be prosecuted. Will they be? Well, that just might be a little too heavy of a lift. I'm not so sure if there's anybody serious enough. And I'm not sure if anybody's really ready to do that. Perhaps we will find out, though. All right, first hour coming to a close. And we got some other stuff from Trump here, but I'm going to get into the other news when we get into the second hour. Folks, remember, this sale comes to an end when the week is over. That's the buy one, get one free bombshell sale happening at thealexjonesstore.com right now. And it's so dark and twisted to think how many 21-week-olds have been shut off from their chance at life, have been shut off before they could see the world, the light of the world, the heat of the world. It's like, how can you see that and still not understand what we've done and not just be heartbroken? So really the only people left pushing and supporting abortion are young liberal women. That's it. And here's an example of one who gets shut down at this abortion debate. Young liberal woman doesn't seem to know much about what she cares about, gets shut down by the expert. Here in clip 2.
So my poster reads, "Life begins when you understand living women matter more than potential babies."
If it's a potential baby, what is inside of a woman?
It's a fetus.
Is it living?
No.
How can it grow if it's not living?
Actually, that's like saying if an acorn is a tree.
When does the fetus become living?
That's actually a good question, but that line...
Yeah, of course, because you don't know it, because it's living. It's living. No, when is sustainability?
21? About like 30 weeks to born, like...
How do you sustain life? Like, my newborns aren't sustainable. You can't just have a newborn and they just, like, live on their own, right?
Right.
Is a newborn not worthy of life? Is a newborn not worthy of life?
So, you know, really what I'd like to see with all political discussion and debate, it's just, let's just have it in reality. Let's just have a debate in reality. And for this young girl, this isn't about, oh, it's not a baby, it's not a life. Stop it. That's just propaganda that the abortion industry has put into your mind. If you don't want to get pregnant, there are ways to prevent it. Period. All right? Nobody's bugging you to not have sex. Okay? But you know what happens when you have sex. So let's stop pretending like we don't. And you have dozens of options to prevent pregnancy. All right? Don't kill your kids. On free speech, but I guess it's really the same attack. Very targeted. And every time they fail in censorship, every time they get exposed in their censorship efforts, all the different ways that they've attempted to do it, Of course, we now have a pretty clear picture of what they were doing, which they were first discussing in the Obama administration. They were going to do it with Clinton, but then Trump got in. So they were working behind the scenes. And that's when we saw the internet censorship start to roll out on social media specifically. Then they started having task force assignments to censor free speech and target people who they viewed politically as enemies for censorship. We found out about the disinformation czar or whatever that woman's name was that they put in charge. Very, very strange woman that they put in charge of that. And then that failed. Then we found out that they had created a secret program where they were communicating Democrats in these different federal bureaucracies, where they were communicating with social media companies through a portal, and they were suggesting things to be censored. The most famous case example would be the Hunter Biden laptop, but there were plenty of others. And so they kind of used this buffer as an excuse to say, we're not violating the First Amendment. We're not actually censoring anybody. The social media companies are doing that. So it's not illegal. It's not a First Amendment violation. Now, that's just like color of law, legal loopholes that they're trying to use. No, the government was requesting censorship, pressuring censorship. Absolutely, it was a First Amendment violation. And really, they should be paying out billions of dollars. But it's like, okay, they ran their little hedge of protection. Well, for the most part, these efforts have failed. It turns out Americans like free speech. So now we're kind of, and I think X really kind of broke the doors wide open. And I know there's a lot of censorship that still goes on, but it's a lot harder now. And when you do engage in the censorship, it's a lot easier to point out the platforms that are doing it and the specific stories that they're doing it to, because you can still get censored-free shows on Rumble. You can still get censor-free broadcasts and news on X. And so it kind of just shatters the whole thing. But that's not going to stop them. And the one thing that they're really concerned about at the ADL is, of course, anti-Semitism. Now, that's just propaganda as well, because now they just say, if you don't support Israel, you're an anti-Semite. If you cover the war in the Gaza Strip, you're an anti-Semite. So it's really just anything. Now it's just become any news that Israel doesn't want you to see, they just say it's anti-Semitic, and then they censor it. And so that's what they're doing. And that's in the West, on top of the censorship that's happening actually on the ground in the Gaza Strip, where the IDF is trying to ban all journalists and having journalists arrested, and some have been killed. So here we go. And they're using some of the old tricks, but they're just repackaging it. Stop Hate Act is a dangerous attack on free speech and the right to dissent. This is an ADL-backed act. Gottheimer, Bacon, and ADL announced legislation to combat terrorists and disinformation on social media. And that's what they say to you, too. Oh, you don't support Israel? You're a terrorist. So see what they've done? That's the game that they've been playing now for over a year. If you don't support Israel and the Gaza Strip, you're a terrorist. You're an anti-Semite. And now here they come back and they say all terrorists and anti-Semites need to be censored. Of course, you're neither a terrorist or an anti-Semite, but that's what they label you as, and then they censor you for it. And soon they'll arrest you for it. That'll be next if they get away with this. This bill would fine social media companies $5 million every day for not fighting terrorism and anti-Semitism. So see, they're using that end around of the Constitution again to put the pressure on social media companies, and they're going to fine you $5 million a day if you don't censor for the ADL, if you don't censor at the behest of Israel's best interests. So anything Israel doesn't like is anti-Semitism. Anything the ADL doesn't like is anti-Semitism. and terrorism. And so now you either get censored or the social media companies pay out $5 million a day. And then here was the press conference of them announcing this in clip 9.
This bipartisan legislation will require social media companies to release detailed public reports of violations of their terms of service and to outline how they're addressing these violations, which includes the use of their platforms by terrorist groups. Every day companies fail to report this information, it will result in a $5 million fine. Social media companies can no longer hide the crimes that take place on their platforms, especially when they pose a threat to America's national security. And we're very proud this bill has the backing of the Anti-Defamation League.
I saw anti-Semitism for the first time when I was 15 years old. I had good parents who taught me it was wrong, but it left a lasting impression on seeing my first incident as a teenager. And if you're on my social media, you see it every day from people that are responding back with what I consider is clearly anti-Semitic kind of messages on social media. I even saw a article today. It was about me, but it was talking about we have to oppose congressmen who are pro-Zionists, right? And you're like, in other words, it's all over our social media, and it's unacceptable. And when I saw the protests out here the last 2 days, they were vile, right? They were, you could see the anti-Semitism in their comments and how they were treating some of our members of Congress who are Jewish. I saw that firsthand. It's unacceptable. And so we want to be in a country that makes clear that anti-Semitism or any kind of racism is repugnant, unacceptable, not allowed in my space, and we with zero tolerance for it. And people should feel like they're scorned for having these ideas and espousing these ideals. And we need to work with our social media companies to clean this up, because what is going on is wrong. And I think it's further influencing other more people that can be influenced by what they're seeing that this is acceptable behavior. It is not. So we need to hold these companies accountable and work with them to take it off the airwaves. So I'm glad to work with my good friend on this. And I appreciate Mr. Greenblatt being here as well.
I applaud Congressman Gottheimer, Congressman Bacon for reintroducing the Stop Hate Act. It's bipartisan, and it's launched not because they are Democrat or Republican, because they're patriots who understand what our country needs, to hold the tech companies accountable and to get them to curb the content.
Oh, yeah, it's bipartisan, all right. We all know why. And Jonathan Greenblatt at the ADL, he's going to decide what the meaning of patriotism is. He's going to lecture us on patriotism. Oh, we have a problem with people that don't like Randy Fine because he's Jewish. You know, Randy Fine that has an Israeli flag higher than the American flag in his own congressional office. You know, Randy Fine that runs around with the Israeli flag on him all day long. You know, Randy Fine that celebrates death and destruction. You know, Randy Fine that celebrates kids starving to death. Yeah, you can't criticize him because he's Jewish. And we're going to sign laws that make sure you're not allowed to criticize members of Congress, because that's patriotic. And this is in America's best interest. Oh, yes, of course, right, yeah. That's who wants this, is America. America is the country calling for censorship. Yeah. America is the country concerned about anti-Israel commentary on the internet. That's America. Oh, yeah. And I love how they play this game like they pretend they don't know what's going on. It's kind of a Streisand effect, but it's not even that. It's just like locker room talk, inside jokes, where I don't even know what a good example would be. It'd be like if your friend did something or said something goofy, and then everybody just kept saying it for a couple months afterwards because it was just funny or something. It's like the whole anti-Semitism thing on X is like because you cry about it. It's like, not to say that there isn't real anti-Semitism, but it's like, let's not even go there for now. most of the stuff is just sarcasm. Most of the stuff is just trolling. Most of the stuff is just giving you the middle finger. That's what most of it is. And now it's just, but you're playing right into the hands. You're proving all the quote-unquote anti-Semites to be correct when you do this. It's like, hey, don't you know cancel culture is Jewish? Don't you know censorship is Jewish? And then here come the Jews saying, we have to censor speech for America. It's like, oh, hey, isn't that funny? How about that? So, you're not allowed to be anti-Semitic? Yeah, you are. That's your free speech. That's your free speech. And of course, you're allowed to criticize Israel. That's also your free speech. But they write laws banning that. But see, I can go into the biggest bookstores in the country. You can go into Barnes & Noble, and they'll have an entire section. They'll have an entire section of books right when you walk in that are anti-white. Books like White Fragility, books like White Rage. A whole section of them. First thing you see when you walk in. In fact, guys, if you pull up, Mike Cernovich posted that last night, and he put an image up. So where are the white groups, trying to write speech laws because you can publish books and put them in the front of a Barnes & Noble that's clearly anti-white bigotry? There's none of it. Doesn't exist. Where are people trying to go into these institutions, these universities, where they discriminate against white people? They also discriminate against Asian people. Where are the people trying to respond to that? Well, I guess the Trump administration is doing a little bit of something about that. But no. Notice what they prioritize first. They prioritize the Jewish students, and they prioritize the Jewish faculty, and they just gave them $20 million for their plight. But the white students that got left behind, the white students that got left out, the white faculty that can't get a raise or a promotion, you don't get jack crap. No, you go into the bookstore and you see the section of white hate, white rage, why I'm no longer talking to white people. America's original sin of being white. Me and white supremacy. I mean, these are the books you see. Now, can you imagine Greenblatt and the ADL? What if you walked into a bookstore and it was a section of books, Jewish fragility, Jewish supremacy, Jews' original sin? How do you think that would go? Just curious. Do you think Greenblatt would have a problem with that? Of course they would. And they'd be suing every bookstore. They'd be suing every book publisher. So then what happens? So the very quote-unquote anti-Semites that they're referring to here, you just proved them right. Cancel culture is Jewish. Censorship is Jewish. You're just proving them right. So what are you going to do? You're going to censor them. And you're going to threaten social media companies with millions of dollars in fines if they don't censor the speech that you don't like. But you have no problem with all the anti-white bigotry. And by the way, there's anti-black bigotry. There's anti-Indian, anti-Mexican. There's all kinds of different hate corners of the internet. But only one gets the legal protection. Only one gets the fines. Only one gets the lawsuit. Only one gets the payouts. So then what do people do? So they go online and they make anti-Semitic jokes and they play into that hand because it's just so obvious. It's so obvious it's hilarious. It's so obvious it's comical. It's humorous now, how over the top it is. So it becomes this joke. It becomes this inside running joke, and then it's a little too much for you. So you play right into the meme and you shut it down. You shut it down. By the way, I don't even know. Do we want to look into the early life of those authors? Whoa. Whoa. Easy there, anti-Semite. Easy. So that's what's going on here. And people are actually, I guess you would say that people are afraid to get into it because it's the most protected thing of, you know, you can't be critical of Israel. You can't say anything negative about Jewish people. So it's like the most protected thing out there. So that's why some people decide, okay, we're going after that. But then it's like why you can't have serious movements against it. So that's why they love to play this game, and they'll say, oh, look at all the anti-Semites. And it's just some guy posting on the internet, some anonymous account posting on the internet. It's not like the powerful ADL. It's not like there's some powerful white lobby doing this. It's just a bunch of kids on the internet for the most part. So they have to be shut down. They have to be targeted. So aside from the racial issues or any of that, I mean, where are the groups coming out and decrying this attack on free speech? If somebody comes up and says, I want to make it illegal for you to write a book that's negative about white people, I would stand up and I would say, he has every right to write a book that's negative about white people. And I would stand up because that's free speech. Somebody was on the street corner in Austin, Texas, which does happen, by the way. We've covered it. Happens at Texas State University. We've covered that too. They can publish. Literally, it was on their thing. They said white DNA is an abomination. Now, I went down there and covered it. I never called for them to be shut down. I just said, here's what you deal with on a college campus. Here's what you deal with. They published that. But if somebody came in there and said, we're gonna censor them, or we're gonna silence them, or we're gonna fine them, or we're gonna arrest them, I'd say no. We're on a battlefield of ideas, but they have the right to free speech. But here comes the ADL reminding you, your free speech ends where Israel says it ends. Your free speech ends when you offend a Jew. We're shutting you down. We're fining you. We're calling you a terrorist. Yeah. And it's like a bunch of 20-something-year-olds shit posting on the internet. It's just like, give me a break. And so, yeah, is there a rise of anti-Semitism? Yeah. What do you think's causing it? So now it's just going to be worse. Gee, I hear all these people talking about the ADL and these different Jewish lobbies trying to censor free speech. I keep hearing about this. And then they do it, and you're like, whoa, that's strange. All these goofy anti-Semites were actually right. So it's just wild to watch this whole thing play out. But I mean, it's totally green-lit and backed by the administration. There's nobody in the mainstream media. The mainstream media wouldn't dare touch that. They wouldn't dare touch it. They're such cowards. You know, I remember when they hit InfoWars and when they hit Alex Jones. I remember every single one of those suckers. I remember every single one of those punks, specifically that went on Fox News. Watching CNN and MSNBC celebrate it, whatever, I shrug my shoulders, I'm not surprised. No, I watched every single one of those punks, like Steve Hilton and others. I watched every single one of you punks go on so-called right-wing conservative news and celebrate the censorship of Alex Jones and InfoWars. You're punks. So you'll celebrate it when it's comfortable for you. When you think it's comfortable, you'll celebrate censorship and free speech. But as soon as it's, they're censoring stuff for the Biden administration. Oh, no, that's free speech. Look at how strong I am. Look at how brave I am. Look at how courageous I am. I'm standing up against social media censorship, even though I celebrated it when there was a test case of Alex Jones and InfoWars. but now it's me. Now it's about vaccines. Now it's about the Hunter Biden laptop. Oh, no, we don't like censorship. Censorship bad. But when it was InfoWars, you loved it because you're a coward. And now it'll be the exact same game. It'll be the exact same people. Yeah, we need to censor anti-Semitic speech. We can't have it. But if it's anti-Christian speech, they won't say a damn thing. When it's anti-Muslim speech, they won't say a damn thing. Because they're cowards and frauds. So they're kind of slipping this in right now, and it's not getting much attention. But really, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Anna Paulina Luna and some others, when they first tried to do this in that anti-Semitism bill a couple of years ago, and Marjorie Taylor Greene started doing the media rounds and highlighting the portions of the bill, like you couldn't talk about the New Testament and Jesus and everything. And she really was the only one out of the gates standing up and publicizing that stuff and saying, hell no. So that cleared the room for the rest to then stop that bill from getting passed. This is not going to go over well. It's not going to go over well. And you know, you can point out to all the anti-Semites and you can show all the Jew hate and everything else that goes on. And people can be disgusted by it. And they can rebuke it, and they will, but they're not going to stand for the censorship. It's not going to happen anymore. Cover this other geopolitical news here. Dealing with Ukraine and Russia, and that war is ongoing. Lots of strikes going back and forth. Ukraine strikes deep at Russia's largest explosives plant, and this was a massive drone strike in 10 different Russian regions as the latest rounds of peace talks have failed, as both countries are intensifying bombing campaigns, Ukraine hitting Russia's explosive factories. Russia launches heavy strikes despite Trump's arms pledge to Ukraine, so we were supposed to stop our funding and supporting of that, and it hasn't, unfortunately for us. And really, unfortunately, for everybody involved, because it's just leading to more death. Instead of forcing either Ukraine or both countries to stop, it's just the more money, the more weapons we put in there, the worse it gets. Ukraine and Russia attack each other's territory after latest rounds of peace talks failed. Air attacks resume quickly after direct talks. Prisoner exchange discussed, but no ceasefire moves. Woman killed by falling drone in Russia. Deaths and attacks in Odessa, Kharkiv, and Sumy region. Russia strikes Kharkiv in latest attack, killing at least one. Russian attacks kill 2 in East Ukraine, 33 hit in Kharkiv. Ukraine secures more funds for some Patriot systems as Russia is striking at the heart of Kharkiv. So back and forth, the death, the destruction continues there. And I wish Trump would have stuck with his gut, stuck with his instincts, and really stuck with his original policy, which was if we can't end it, we're going to try to end it, but if we can't end it, we're just going to let them have at it. We're not funding it anymore. We're not providing military support anymore. We're done. They'll have to fight it out. And it's not even a NATO country, so you can't even use the NATO excuse, which they love to use. But it's not a member of NATO. So, and that's why Russia is so pissed, because it's basically acting as a member of NATO when it's not. And they've expressed this, but they always leave it out. They leave that portion out of it in the Western media that loves to demonize Putin. Run by the military-industrial complex influence so that the defense contractors stay rich, all of their shareholders stay rich, and the money keeps flowing as the blood keeps flowing. So then there's France. After Macron says we're going to recognize the state of Palestine, French Israelis fume as Paris prepares to recognize Palestinian state. They're saying they feel abandoned. All right. Well, do you want to be French or do you want to be an Israeli? I suppose now is the time to decide, huh? And then you had this. Jewish children removed from flight in Spain for singing in Hebrew. And so this is how it's being pitched. It was a noise complaint, but it turned out the song they were singing was Death to Arabs. The kids, the young Jewish kids singing Death to Arabs on the plane, so they were removed from the flight. But that's anti-Semitism, is what they're saying. And these poor Jewish kids singing Death to Arabs and getting noise complaints on the flight, that's considered anti-Semitism. So it's just not going well. It's just not going well. Israel's relations with the rest of the world, and unfortunately, Jewish people are suffering now too because, Jewish and non-Jewish relations are not so good in some instances. Not so good. So, the good news is, though, when we talk about this stuff, no matter who you are, white, black, Asian, anything else, Jewish, Christian, anything else, 99% of your exchanges with other humans is probably going to be positive. But there's no doubt if it's 99 now, at this rate, it'll be 98 tomorrow. So it's not trending the right direction with all of this nonsense. But overall, it mostly just plays in the political world and not in the real world experience, at least from my experience, I would say that. That's what I would say. Now, the Democrats might have had the greatest self-own of all time on social media yesterday, and I know we briefly covered it. They've deleted the post. Now, there were other members of the left-wing media, there were other members of the Democrat Party that shared that, thinking it was a big own, like, oh, this is Trump's economy. So in case you haven't seen it yet, guys, you can dot cam this or pull up any of the graphics. I know Alex had one on his show that was similar to this, but actually was a little better because it showed Trump and Biden. So they say, oh, look how expensive U.S. grocery prices are, and it's just, literally it's from Biden. It's just like, that's literally Biden that did that. And then they say, oh, Trump did that, and it's literally Biden. And what's funny? You look at this. The grocery bills went up the most, but alcohol stayed the lowest. That tells you something. But it's the greatest cell phone in the history of the internet. And as I'm watching this unfold and then they erase the post, we've kind of moved on from swinging at the left all day. They're not really in power. They're kind of having a little bit of an identity crisis right now. There's a void in leadership. So they're not too strong. They're not too influential. They're still out there kind of flailing around. But, it's not really necessary for us to be going after the left all day. So there's some right stuff and some stuff with Trump and everything else, foreign policy stuff. But we don't